This is Write Once, Read Many. Covering chapter 28.1 from, of course, Worm. Okay. And gonna let the speed draw and the music play out a little bit while I wait for people to arrive. Hello, Vic has arrived. I just had put out the audience participation question a few minutes ago, and it is, does it seem like Taylor is more relaxed in this chapter than she normally is? And the reason I asked this question, honestly, is because it's like, wow, she seems like way more chill at the end of the world moment than like other non-end of the world moments. She's way less wound up, even though she got kind of obliterated and halfway and then recreated with space magic. Isn't that nice? Look at Canary and that yellow feather hair. I like how it's like you can kind of tell it's feathers, but it also kind of looks like normal hair anyway, because it's like styled like that. Because sometimes when I think of Canary, if I think of like just seeing like certain types of like really thin feathers, I think like, ooh. But this makes it seem more appealing. Nailed it. Anyway, so themes for this chapter. Well, the themes are kind of directionlessness in a way. The crew doesn't know what to do. Other people are all kind of infighting or like taking over things, but as a cohesive Cape community, they are completely aimless. I don't think that's necessarily a theme, but I'm reaching here. I guess the opportunism of the various people who are like taking over specific worlds, like Teacher, like that's kind of a theme. Like parahumans do that kind of thing a lot. And they all have different ideas of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because a guy like Teacher, like, what was an S-class threat to him ever? He's the type of guy who, probably when there was an Endbringer attack, he'd be like, well, technically, I'm not the bad guy here. And, like, taking over someone's territory or something. You know, they all have different lines. And they can all self-justify very easily what they're gonna do. Anyway, moving on from the themes section. We're gonna right into the chapter summary, I guess. We've got it like opening up with Taylor waking up in a hospital room, as seen in the image. At first, she is like just listening to a conversation between Tattletale and the doctor, and the doctor is making excuses for why they didn't save people, and Tattletale saying they threw away a bunch of people by not, opening portals and saving the people in the oil rig attack. Let's be honest, Doctor. This was a critical moment, maybe the most critical, and you held back your best cards. You could have evacuated most of the people there, and you didn't. And then, obviously the Doctor is saying that they would have lost their portal network or whatever if they had tried and failed. But then she insults Tattletale. She says an intelligent individual would recognize that they don't have all the facts. And this is when Taylor becomes alarmed. One of the moments, oh hell, she thinks to herself in italicized text. And so she sort of starts to get up like she's going to go screen some defense and stop Tattletale from blowing up. But she kind of is wobbly, and she's got to test out her new body. Because it's like a new arm and a new lower body entirely, I think. And then, Tattletale sort of spits back some retorts, and Taylor realizes they've lost Eidolon, even. And then the Doctor is impatient, wants to leave. Tattletale is saying, like, look, you've gotta throw in more of your resources, because we know you're keeping things up your sleeve, and we know that you just won't go all in on anything. Oh, Greg's here. Hey, Greg. And then they're kind of going back and forth on this. The Tattletale thinks that if they had used everything they had from the start, they might have been able to stop Scion. And then, the obvious argument from the Doctor's side is that they would have lost everything if they failed, if they had done that. But Taylor starts looking around the room and sees Canary over there. And it describes what she looks like, which we can see. Blue shirt, orange shorts, yellow hair, made of feathers. And then Taylor's about to ask her about something, but then they keep listening into the conversation in the next room. And they say a lot of words, but it all comes down to Tattletale being mad at the Doctor for not saving those people on the oil rig, and not throwing in more powerful capes and stuff. So the Doctor leaves, and then Taylor starts being like, bugs? I can't believe I'm not covered in a pile of bugs right now. I feel so uncomfortable that I'm not covered in a big pile of bugs. And she senses the surrounding area. There's a tent zone outside. This seems to be a Tattletale base. They, I believe, are right near New Brockton. And Taylor starts getting up and thinks about her body being rebuilt. And she's like thinking about the ship of Theseus implications of having like entirely new crafted legs, and if they're gonna be as strong, if like she can deal with building up her strength again, or like if it's her strength, if it is there, all kinds of weird quandaries run through her head in a second, and then she's like, "Oh no, but what about my private part?" And then she's worried that Bonesaw, or like Panacea, or worse, Bonesaw had fixed her. And she just has to like momentarily like lie to herself and be like, it wasn't Bonesaw or Panacea. It was someone totally different with a totally different power where they didn't have to think about my biology. Um, and, It's funny because she literally does start immediately piling bugs onto herself as soon as she can. Vic says they're both too perv, and it's true. Both Bonesaw and Amy are too perv, and you don't want them sensing your bod. Oh, there I was. So finally, Canary speaks up, and she's like asking if Taylor's okay, and Taylor starts thinking like, wow, her voice is crazy, and starts thinking about Cape voice stuff, which I think is supposed to be also planting the ideas again and like reiterating it in a few chapter when they try communicating by reaching out with powers interactions rather than like using direct speech. Yeah, so Canary's voice is all crazy because of her power. And then Taylor has a fun moment where Canary says that her friends will be kinder about the way they tell her about the situation. And then she's like, "You don't know my friends." And then Canary tells her that they were there by her side when she was being rebuilt by Panacea and having like seizure-like fits. So, her illusion that it wasn't Panacea is shattered pretty quick. And then it's been several days, at least a full day, but Canary's not sure how long. She doesn't like say exactly how long. I think it is confirmed somewhere, but I'm just not remembering exactly how long. I think like 3 days. Anyway, Scion's flying around still. When she asks how bad the situation is, Canary's only sort of idea is bad and really bad. She doesn't have any idea of any of the details. And then Canary sort of explains that she wasn't like a cape. She's was like a band member. And then Taylor is like, ugh, and kind of rolls her eyes internally at Canary. And then she's testing out her body while Canary blathers for a minute. Canary's giving a regular amount of detail, and Taylor's just instantly like, I don't care about you. She's being a little unkind, but it's fine. And then Taylor is able to move past having the new body, she goes, no, not worth moaning over it, one way or the other. I had my life. I had an intact body. So she makes her peace with Panacea quite quickly. And then she asks sort of for more information again, but Canary doesn't know anything. Canary thinks that people are still fighting, but she, again, doesn't really know why. Or, like, who's fighting who or whatever. They're not fighting Scion. And then, Taylor sort of explains that people are fighting each other for reasons like pride, revenge, sheer stubbornness. And then she tries to ask Canary why she's not in the fight, and I think this moment's kind of funny. Why aren't you fighting? Sorry, that came out like an accusation. I meant it out of curiosity. And then, Canary just says she doesn't have a power that would help with this. Taylor goes into the long voices thought. She thinks about different characters throughout the book who have had different voices or completely lost the ability to speak. Things like the Endbringers and Scion who never spoke. Then people like her and Gru and Defiant who all alter their voice with powers or technology. And she downplays herself and puts herself in the same category as Uber, which I think is wow, that's harsh on yourself, Taylor. You should be, you should give yourself a little credit. The Glass de Guenier type capes all seem to think you have a good power, or at least an important power. Anyway, so Taylor's thinking, and she thinks the word communication, but it's it's italicized, so it feels like one of those space entities single word thoughts, destination and so forth. And then finally, Tattletale, Rachel, and Aisha walk in the room, and then they start kind of, talking. Taylor's asking how bad everything is, and Tattletale is saying that they don't have great communication right now, but she thinks half of everyone is gone, and then when Taylor inquires, then she explains, like, half of all capes, half of all civilians, not just from Bet, from like, all Earths. They think that he may have killed half of all the people in all the realities, which seems like a lot. But Tattletale does mention that they don't have the kind of other realities where every single decision makes another reality like she would expect there to be. And so she says there are fewer than you'd expect, but it still seems like, regardless, half of all people, that's a lot of people. And then she gives a sympathetic half grin, which I find very funny. Then Aisha chimes in. The chapter starts with Tattletale saying over and over again, "The dog is fucked," which Rachel didn't like, but she let slide because it was like the doctor-mother conversation. but then Aisha's bringing it back, and Rachel's not having any of it. This is the moment in which the art is happening, in which she grabs Aisha around the neck and is muzzing her hair and so forth to try and make her stop. Before Aisha makes her forget that she was holding a person. And then, Tattletale explains that there's a bunch of refugees and she took in Canary. No reason that I allowed Canary here. Anyway, Canary doesn't want to be part of this, which is clear throughout the thing, and she's like saying so. But they will of course draw her in. Tattletale does explain that people are still fighting, but they're fighting one another, and then Taylor's upset at this. They get ready to go in the other room, and this is when Canary objects a bunch, and Tattletale's like, hey, you just gotta listen to my proposal, you don't gotta do anything beyond that. And then Taylor begins sort of getting ready, and the conversation goes on where Canary's like, are you gonna try and convince me? And then Taylor's like, no, it's fine. And then when Rachel says that she's scared, then Taylor hits back with an everyone's scared. And sort of talks through the situation about how, a bunch of really strong people like Eidolon all got killed off all at once, and they weren't able to do anything that we noticed. And then they all sort of mentally process again how many major players and powerful capes have been lost. And then I think that this speech, even though it was an I'm not gonna convince you, was also a I'm gonna convince you, because it ends with we need everyone we can get. And this is when Canary explains that she mentally can't deal with doing violence. Rachel explains the first meeting between herself and Taylor pretty bluntly, and then she also says her power wouldn't affect Scion. And it's like, yeah, well, most powers don't affect Scion, but we're going to fight regular capes right now. She also says she's not asking her to fight, which, it's Taylor. She's asking her to fight. She's just gotta slow walk it. They walk out of there. It's kind of cold, and then they go into Tattletale's command center, and it's got a typical Tattletale style, pin boards and computer monitors everywhere, kind of set up. Her standard fare. And they start watching some footage from a Cape who had a camera inbuilt. They were using the Dragon's Teeth system. And then they see basically a portal being opened up by Faultline, and Dinah's with them. And then as things happen, it turns out that Teacher and Trickster were in the crowd, and that Trickster sort of moved through Teacher and some of his guys, and they set off some device that cancels out the ability to connect to the world they went into. It blocks that world from Labyrinth's view or something. But a bunch of supplies have been moved through to the other side, so people are able to steal all the supplies and monopolize that world. It's typical teacher shit. It's a real asshole. And then Taylor doesn't actually recognize Kraus, who is not. He doesn't have a mask on right now, but Tattletale does say that she'd only seen him a couple times, and it has also been 2 years, so both her memory and his face have had 2 years to change. But, she puts the pieces together and figures out who it is. So yeah, we see this whole thing, and it's like, the idea is put out that there's a chance that that teacher just wanted to work on a big trump card with 0 distractions, but no one thinks that because they know that he is a real piece of shit, and that if anything, he's definitely just betraying them. And then, they mentioned that Defiant has captured Saint, so he is a prisoner. And then Saint wants something from teacher. Who knows? And then they watch another video. The Yangban do some big attack, and they refuse to have portals set up in their own area, during the time leading up to Gold Morning. And then after this has started, then they start attacking all the different settlements that have portals. And taking over and stuff. Some old bullshit. And then the next thing they don't have video of, but it's the Irregulars are having like a big attack on Cauldron, but despite everything that Cauldron has going for them, they're still on the back foot with this. So they're not sure. Exactly how they're doing it, but they assume it's a powerful stranger ability. And then, Canary admits that she might have been able to help them find their way to the Cauldron base when, if she had been contacted, because they had opened a portal directly into her house. Although, unless they had something that could trace a portal from like 5 years ago in a location like that, then I don't know how anyone would get back there. It seems like any old Cauldron cape could tell them where a portal had been opened up at one point. But let's see here. At this point, Taylor realizes that the hair being feathers thing is from her being a Cauldron cape, and Tattletale's like, yeah, it's pretty rare for there to be powers changes on people who are natural trigger event capes, rather than Cauldron vial capes. Boop, 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 boop. Canary mentions that she specifically does stuff to avoid evoking the Seamerg, which I think is interesting. A little piece of world building. We had talked in the past about how people had those different tattoos from the Seamerg, and there was both the normal tattoos gotten because of the government program, and there was also the sort of protest bird tattoos to protest the treatment of people who had been affected by the Seamerg. Anyway, So, aside from that little background detail, let's see here. We go to another problem, which is that, well, she was going to say problem number 4, and then it's, just every problem is like infighting between, different capes rather than people fighting Scion. You know, the issue 4 is various different groups going to new worlds and like becoming sort of like elbowing their way in the way Tattletale did in Brockton Bay, kind of thing, and taking over. They say she says she doesn't need in-depth explanations of everything, and they just start like blowing through different things. And we get a classic thing that they mention the sleeper, which whenever the sleeper is mentioned, it's like, this is clearly a very powerful cape who no one wants to deal with, but also, like, we're never going to explain his power because it's not relevant to the current conversation. So, we will continue to mention the sleeper and just be like, oh, not that guy. We don't have time to deal with his shit right now. They say there are warlords on bet now as well. And they're worried about a bunch of like smaller issues. They don't mention it, but there's sort of the idea from other chapters that there would be a bunch of unmanaged Tinker technology from Tinkers who had been killed. And, you know, that's just going to have problems crop up over time. Those damn Tinkers. So, you know, they're still talking pretty casually about all this, despite everything. Like, no one's freaking out. Aisha says, not a problem. Easy peasy. And she's not really, like, out of sync with the rest of the room. They're all kind of, like, dealing with this better than you'd expect. I think it's such a big problem that it, like, crosses some mental event horizon, and they're all, like, able to just, like, ride the need to rise to the occasion to avoid dealing with how, like, terrible everything is. But yeah. And apparently the Seamerg has shown up. And then, but, you know, the Seamerg has shown up but not attacked. And Imp jokes that because Scion has already destroyed everything, the Endbringers don't have anything to do. And then, you know, Taylor starts basically giving a hero speech, where she, you know, talks about, I mean, she's talking about how everyone's being petty and the strongest of them have been killed, but I feel as though she's building up, even when she's saying, like, I don't think humanity's noble, she's still, like, you know, I don't know. She's doing her leader thing where they all think she's awesome for like her little speeches and things. I think. I don't know. Maybe doesn't win her points with Canary, but the other 3 are all like, yes, you're in charge again. The best Undersider, Taylor. we get Aisha saying ergo the dog is fucked. I didn't mention it earlier, but Rachel went out on patrol, so she's not in the room when we get this next the dog is fucked. And they all, Aisha, Tattletale, and Taylor start laughing. They just sort of burst out laughing. And Tattletale keeps complaining through this chapter and the next few that Aisha is like using language that is surprising for her. But it's clear that she has been building up her vocabulary so that she can be a proper villain. I mean, I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but she's been secretly learning Latin as well because she thinks that that villains should be able to speak Latin in the same way that Cherish thought that. Let's see here. Yeah, they're all laughing. They're all smiling. Then Tattletale asks if anyone there wants to get revenge. They all decide that they don't want to get revenge on anybody. And then Tattletale's like, do you want to bang it out? And then Taylor's like, I don't want to bang it out. And then there's some back and forth. Initially, Aisha's like, oh my god, you were propositioning Taylor. And then Tattletale's like, no, not me. Now, I don't think that she was, but I'm here with Aisha in my accusations. And then this is when Rachel comes back, and then she notices that they're having a good time, and Tattletale literally says, just having fun. Then Tattletale asks if Rachel is with anybody, and she's like, no. And then Taylor asks where Gru is, and another iconic moment where Aisha goes, ew, gross, could you not make those obvious leaps in logic? And then this is when Tattletale tells a tale. He's gone. He was here while Panacea put you back together. When she was working on you, he borrowed her power and took over for a bit. I don't know if you're going to see that as weird or gross or weirdly sweet goodbye gift or deeply invasive or whatever, but yeah, maybe he just needed to help. Needed to know that he could save you or help you or fix you after you'd fulfilled one of his old fears and gone and got yourself murdered in a fit of recklessness. And then he left? Retired. Quit. Maybe losing the fight, verifying he couldn't do anything constructive, it took something out of him. Seeing you like that, it took something else. And then he ran into Bonesaw. She didn't work on me? No, we didn't let her. She's paired up with Panacea for now, because Panacea is really the only way we can double-check her work. Anyways, yeah, Gru confirmed you were on your way. He was leaving, she was walking in. They crossed paths. I think it was the last straw that broke the camel's back. He left without a word. Cozen came by asking if we'd had a spot they could head off to. I sent them to a cabin we put a bit out of the way. Generator, toilets, books, movies, insulation. Pretty sure it's just the two of them, taking care of each other until the world ends. And then Taylor... And then she's like, I wasn't even envious or jealous or anything. And she goes, okay, good. And then they move on from it. There's a bit of more joking, lighthearted tone around asking where Perion and Foyle are. And then it's confirmed that they were out patrolling with Rachel. And they were patrolling because of the Yangban, because they sort of expect that they might get attacked like other locations have. No reason not to expect it, really. They're right by a portal, you know. And then... Rachel is kind of there for Taylor. She gives her a rub on the hair. You know, as she does. And then there's sort of two conversations going on for a bit, but the one conversation was just Tattletale and Imp going back and forth about Imp using big words. And then they hang out there in silence for a minute. And then Taylor feels kind of at ease, it seems. And then Canary's like, we're giving up like everyone else? And Taylor, or Tattletale goes, what? No! Fuck no! And then I think this moment is so funny too. Aisha goes, no, wait, did anyone think that? Because I was thinking this was more us trying to decide what the hell we need to do before we throw ourselves into one final suicidally reckless attack. I just think it's so funny how, like, Canary is completely out of step with all the actual capes. Like, every cape is like, what? You thought we weren't going to fight? Are you crazy? We're just gonna keep fighting. That's what we do. And then, yeah, so that's a fun little moment. I mean, you know, Taylor's basically like, no, we won't be completely suicidal, but yes. Rachel goes, go out fighting. Tattletale also says, go out fighting. And then Taylor brings in, nothing held back. Right, I'll need my stuff. And then they are going to talk to Perrin and Foil and Shadowstalker, and then they're gonna they basically this is when they finally turn Canary around, and Canary says that she'll be there to help with nonviolent resolution. I should get a moment to be like, we'll power of friendship them, and then Canary doesn't know how to deal with her, and so then Aisha, another comedy moment, alters her persona to act like she's giving like older sibling cape energy. Just ignore me. Everyone else does. And then you know, they sort of they're getting up, and Taylor's like, oh, I still feel sort of weird and gross in this new body. And then she thanks Tattletale for looking after her. So sweet. And then Taylor sort of asks, like, she's like, something was off earlier. There's something you're not telling me. But unless it affects things immediately, maybe don't tell me. It's kind of funny. I mean, she says, truth, if it doesn't spoil the mood too much. I don't want to hear, like, Dinah said 100% chance we're wiped out. Yeah, and then apparently there was something that had come up with Glace de Guenye, which gets sort of mentioned, but it's also the point where Taylor decides, like, in the past, I have always pushed for full disclosure and honesty, and it may have served me at the time, but it also cost me. So right now, as Taylor, I'm going to move on without knowing whatever it is, and I'm going to trust Tattletale on this. And, she thinks of the Skitter and Weaver personas and decides to be Taylor instead of Skitter or Weaver. And this is when she goes, "Do I need to know, Tattletale, for this? Does it provide any crucial information for dealing with any of the stuff we've got to deal with?" "Yes, but probably not right away." "Okay, then I can wait. Let me enjoy some blissful ignorance for just a little while longer while we make our way out there. Try to save the world from itself, if not from Scion. Deal?" And then the chapter ends. Da da da. Well, I really like the dialogue in this one. I think it's a great sort of setup chapter for this arc. There are a lot of things are sort of back to back, both from the prior arcs and then here. I guess it's only 26 and 27 that are back to back in that section of the book, but it's 26 is so long that the fact that it all runs with no time jumps really is makes it just feel like kind of an endless, not a slog from a reading standpoint, but from a Taylor's life standpoint, an endless slog. And then this is sort of the first reset in a while where, like, she goes into arc 27 feeling like really devastated. And then at this point in arc 28, when things are like considerably worse, she's able to like put things together and keep going. It's like I said, it feels like they cross some like event horizon where things are so bad that they can't even like conceive of how bad it is. So they're like able to just keep fighting. But yeah, there's great like team interaction. There's just very few characters. It's like classic Undersiders, Undersider ladies, plus Canary. And of course, this is the moment in the story when we realize that the Undersiders are just a girl gang now. They're not, they're the No Boys Allowed club. So, yeah. Which I had thought to myself, I almost asked it as the question, but I'm like, it's too, like, weird of a audience participate. I mean, not weird, but it just felt like not the right thing for the audience participation question, but I thought, like, does it feel to you as though it's a coincidence or on purpose that that Wildbow has written us into a spot where it's only ladies, and it's not just like the 3 starting women from the Undersiders. It's like there are 6 of them now, possibly 7 with Canary like being their tag along. So that's kind of interesting. What does it mean? But yeah, anyway, for arc stuff, great opening chapter, like I said. I really think it sets the tone, lets the air out a little bit. It's not like we're going to be in constant, heightened, maximum combat mode for the rest of the book. Just a nice conversation. And let's see. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't want to sort of talk about the later chapters too much, just in that, like, you know, if someone ever actually listens to this along with reading it, which would be crazy, then I don't want to just exclusively spoil upcoming stuff. Anyway, great start to the arc. And the arc is named Cockroaches. I can add that. And it is, of course, a reference to the scattering of the different people, the capes, and the people. It's the thing that Shadowstalker Sophia had said the other chapter while she was in jail. Anyway, for characters, this is a great setup. I mean, Dr. Mother's in it for like 30 seconds, and she's, you know, she and Tattletale are obviously quite at odds here, but Tattletale does want to not only work together, but like she wants the Doctor to bring more to the table and stuff. But obviously the Doctor's being all cagey. She doesn't like using resources. And then boop 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 boop. She's like, you know what? Dr. Mother is like the player who is playing a JRPG where they can't bear to use a potion, even though they have 99 potions, and they keep finding potions on the ground that they, you know, can no longer stock further of. Because, like, the somehow mentality of what if I need those later? And it's like, how can you need those later? You're in the last boss fight. This is the final boss. You're not going to need those later. It's Kefka. But she does need them later, and she's not going to use any elixirs. And then, you know, next character, I would say Tattletale, we can just say, because she's introduced, doing lots of talking. She's like, it's like I said, they're all in fairly good spirits. She's like, you know what, things are bad, but we're just gonna keep on keeping on. And she's getting everybody on track. She's really, like, moving things forward. She's not rushing them, but she is the one who keeps being like, okay, we're going to the next thing now. Roll out. And then we got our new newbie, Canary. We of course know Canary fairly well from her own chapter, and I think generally as an audience, she's well liked. I like Canary, so it's fun to see her as kind of a normcore person dealing with these people. Rachel, we can see that Rachel has softened a lot. She's giving hair muzzes all around. Aisha or Taylor, she would, if she needed to, muzz up Tattletale's hair too. She's not to be trifled with. And then, you know, Aisha gets lots of great